Hey guys, it's Danny. Welcome to another episode from our Myth or Truth. I'm mixing series now. Myth or Truth series. Today I will be answering or addressing more of the myth or truths you guys left in the comment section of my videos. My co-host is the wonderful Phalaenopsis Linden mix, which smells wonderful and looks wonderful. And as always, this video is sponsored by rePotme.com, who offers you everything you could possibly need to take care of your orchids, from potting mixes to pots, fertilizers, and everything in between. And not only for orchids, but also for other houseplants as well. So I'll link you to their website down below in the description and in the pinned comment. Feel free to check them out at any time. I will also share with you the products that I personally really like using, and I think you'll enjoy as well. And with that said, let us continue with the series. I'm hoping to go through more of them than I did last time, so let's get to work. Myth or truth from Jennifer. You can't do the cool down trick with your phals unless you separate them from your cattleyas and oncidiums, because the lower temperatures at night will be detrimental to your non-phal plants. That is false, so no need to worry, because it's not gonna damage most anything, let's say. When we refer to the cool down for Phalaenopsis, not for this one, the store-bought Phalaenopsis, we refer to reducing the temperature a little bit, not too much, down to 18-17 degrees Celsius. I'll put the equivalent on the screen. At that temperature, I'm feeling quite nice. It's not cold for me. For them, it's a little bit cooler. They will not freeze. They will not feel bad or anything. It's just a temperature change that influences flower spikes. That's all there is to it. Now, most of the other orchids we have in our homes will do absolutely fine at those temperatures. Even the notorious hot growers like Vandas or Cattleyas, I've never had issues at those temperatures. And generally speaking, if you kind of want to maintain everybody happy, I would not go lower than 15 degrees Celsius with most of the orchids. You will always have those exceptions, even in the Cattleya family, where they will tolerate lower temperatures than that. But to find a happy middle ground for everybody, don't go lower than 15 degrees Celsius. So from 15 to 18, there is quite the difference. You have a lot of wiggle room, so don't worry about it. You can offer the cool down even if you have other plants. And by the way, there are other plants who will benefit from the cool down. Dendrobium nobilis, Ingracum orchids, Bulbophyllums, I do believe some of them, even some Cattleyas. I think the former Laelia, I don't know if it's still a Laelia anceps, I think that one is triggered by a little bit of a cool down. I don't personally have that one, but from what I read. So there is a chance there will be other orchids which will benefit from that little dip in temperature, which is not extreme. It's not extreme enough to cause any damage. Don't worry about it. Next myth or truth from Eluna Moon. Myth or truth, premature flower spikes, for example, in summer instead of autumn or winter, will set a Phalaenopsis orchid back. That is very interesting. I will say yes and no at the same time. For context, at the moment, 5 of my 16 Phalaenopsis are growing new leaves, roots, and are developing new flower spikes. Most of these phals are with me for years and have never done this midsummer. I just removed all previous flower spikes in the beginning of July. Well, sometimes it happens. Remember I was telling you in a previous video that Phalaenopsis, the ones in the flower shops, are induced by the nurseries with controlling the temperature, so you can have them in bloom even in summertime or have them spike. Well, maybe something of the sorts happened here as well. Maybe you had some temperature fluctuations, which, as you can see, affected some of them, not all of them. And again, that's why I tell you guys, put that temperature as low as 17, just to cover everybody, all of the hybrids. Some Phalaenopsis will be triggered at 20 degrees Celsius, some will not. So maybe your grow room went a little bit lower, maybe in the nighttime, like maybe 22 degrees Celsius. Some Phalaenopsis will consider 22 degrees Celsius a little bit chilly. I know, 22 is not good for working out. I would go lower. So maybe something like that happened and a few more flower spikes were promoted. It's okay, it happens. Will this production of flower spikes set the orchid back? Depends. Usually what I've experienced with my Phalaenopsis is that if we have an off-season flower spike, sometimes they just pause that flower spike and then focus on their foliage and roots, case in which they will not be set back because they will do their vegetative growth. Other times they will continue to flower, and in that season, indeed, I do see that the leaves grew slower, so that the orchid didn't produce the same amount of leaves it would normally produce without that flower spike being there. So it depends on the orchid. I don't think they will be setback, and especially with Phalaenopsis, setback is not that bad if you have a lot of leaves in the past. Yes, you might have a leaf that is not as big as the other ones. It's usually fine. We have a lot of roots. Don't worry about it. The true setback comes when we are out of roots or out of other leaves. That's the most detrimental one, and it takes time to recover. These little anomalies with flower spikes, I wouldn't worry about them too much. Even though, yeah, small degree of setback can happen, I don't think it's gonna be very, very bad. Next myth or truth from Rakashith. You have sent the most myth or truths. I will give you an award, I promise. So, myth or truth. We should always remove wilting or fading orchid flowers on the same spike, as they will cause their neighboring newer flowers to fade sooner too. That is a myth. That is such a good myth. I have never considered that. But do you guys remember that some articles suggest that you do not keep ripening fruit or wilting flowers next to other flowers because the ethylene gas can actually make the other flowers fade faster? I will tell you a secret. I have never experienced it. Given I never had ripening fruit next to my orchid, so I'm not going to talk about that. But having some flowers fade next to other flowers, I cannot say I observed any damage on the fresh flowers. So in my personal experience, that is a myth. I don't think it has anything to do with fading of other flowers. Maybe if you have all of the flowers in a box, and maybe if there is some ethylene gas being released in that tiny enclosure, yeah, maybe that will have an effect. I'd never tested it, but I can imagine it could have an effect. But like in a room, I don't think it's the case. I personally have never experienced it. Usually what happens is the flowers will reach their normal life cycle, and they will start to fade one by one. But it's not that one affects the other. It's just because this one opened first and then the other one and so on. So they will fade most of the times in that sequence as well. Another myth or truth from Rakashith, another good one. It's easier to water orchids grown in a single type of potting media as it dries up uniformly rather than a potting mix with different types of media. False. That is absolutely false. And I can see how some people might think that if they use only one type of mix, everything will be uniform, everything will be okay, it's easier to manage. It is not, actually. Let's take bark, for example. Bark does not retain water. So when you water an orchid in bark, you drain it properly, you put it back in its place, what's gonna happen? You're gonna have the top layer dry much faster than the bottom layer, because there are two things happening here. One, we have gravity pulling on that water downwards all the time, so that excessive water which remains in the bark accumulates at the bottom. And second, we have more aeration and ventilation and exposure at the top, so water evaporates faster from the top. So if we just take this example, we can see how no, things are not more even in bark, and sometimes it can be very tricky to know how and when to water properly an orchid only in bark, especially in some environments. In other environments, might not be a problem. It all has to do with all of the factors surrounding the orchid. So what we usually do is mix bark with sphagnum moss, for example, to keep it uniform. So as you could see, no, one single type of media doesn't necessarily mean easier watering or that it will dry more uniformly. If we're talking about sphagnum moss, then yes, this absolutely applies, but it's not gonna apply with all the media. Myth or truth from Ana Maria. Can orchids such as phals be propagated from leaf cuttings? I saw a video on Facebook, it's not only on Facebook, it's also on YouTube, talking about it, but I think it's a myth. Yeah, it's absolutely a myth. I did see that video, and I do believe it was YouTube because I don't spend time on Facebook. I know I have a Facebook account just to be there, and I post whenever I post on YouTube, but the truth is I cannot stand Facebook. I'm never there. I can't. I never could. I don't think there was a time where I was really into Facebook, except maybe the first year. Anyway, I digress. What that video was doing was like getting a leaf and then gluing what appear to be roots, they were something else, I believe, in making you think that, look, from a cutting, just like a succulent, you can propagate a Phalaenopsis. That is absolutely false. I don't like that type of clickbait. I'm all pro making titles appealing and clickbaity because that's what the algorithm has taught us. That's what we gotta do to compete, to get noticed, to get our videos to be seen. We gotta do that. Play silly games, obey silly rules, pretty much. I know the saying was with the prizes, but that's what we gotta do. I'm all for a little bit of a clickbait in the title, but when it comes to lies, like obvious lies like this, I'm like, no, no thank you, not for me. So returning to the myth or truth, no, we cannot propagate Phalaenopsis orchids from leaves. They are not like succulents. They don't have any growth node on the leaf if you cut the leaf. What we need to do is make another baby plant. There are some species which can produce some keikis from their roots, but that's very rare, and it just happens mainly with some species, not really with the flower shop Phalaenopsis. But other than that, on the leaf, no, we're not gonna have the same little baby sprouting like in the case of a succulent, sadly. I wish it were the case, but no. That's why orchids are more expensive than succulents generally at the flower shop. Next myth or truth from Violent Bee. No, no, no. Bees should be all fuzzy and friendly, please. Someone at Orc told me that Epsom salts help induce flowering in orchids. Do you know if that's true? That is absolutely false. What is Epsom salt? Let's Google. Don't Google because I already know. I mean, you should Google. Don't take my word for it. It's magnesium sulfide. Yes, magnesium sulfate. Did I say sulfate? Mispronunciation. Right, so magnesium. What does magnesium do? It's a very good nutrient for orchids. It is also contained in most good quality orchid fertilizers or plant fertilizers. Do fertilizers generally and specifically magnesium induce blooming? Sadly, no. They do help maintain an orchid healthy, but not just magnesium, everything together. Because you see, the funny thing about these nutrients is that if you take 3 of them, but you don't take the rest 10, you're gonna still have deficiencies. And even if you have abundant amounts of magnesium, you would still get probably a boron deficiency if you don't have boron. So no, magnesium is a good nutrient. If you really live in an area where you cannot find a full menu fertilizer, absolutely you can supplement with Epsom salt, only if you need it in small quantities. But if you don't need it, just don't use it, and definitely don't expect flower spikes if you're using Epsom salt. Flower spikes come if you're doing a good job overall. So if you are doing a good job, you get flower spikes, congratulations, that's great. It's not the Epsom salt. Even if you might use it, that's not it. Next up, Salvador Franco Castillas. Is it true or false that a sick orchid next to another much healthier one helps the sick orchid feel better by having company from the healthy one? Oh, that's sweet. It's false, but it is sweet, isn't it? Yeah. Orchids are not humans. They're not even animals. They are plants. They're very different life forms. And they don't necessarily work like us or like we think they might. Yes, it's very fun for me to hug this orchid and say, oh, you're so pretty, you're so beautiful. I do that for my own benefit, not for its benefit. So no, a sick orchid next to a healthy one will not make the sick one get well faster. And depending on what the sick one is suffering from, the sick one can actually pass some pathogens to the healthy one. So it's better to separate sick orchids actually, depending on what they have, especially if they have pests. Yeah, don't keep them together if they have pests. But yeah, it's cute. It's, you know, I'm a very scientifically oriented person, but at the same time, I'm such a romantic. My husband says he never met a more romantic person than me. I'm so romantic. I adore these little fantasies and stuff, but no. When it comes to work, yeah, no, science is above romance for me. And I think that is about it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope I managed to reach to your myth or truth. If I didn't, stay tuned. There is another series coming very soon. Thank you so much for sending all of these myth or truth. Thank you rePotme for sponsoring yet another episode. And with that said, I hope you'll have a great day today, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.